Welcome to episode 89 of Accessible Finance for Retirement. I'm Eric Johns.
And I'm Rachael Johns.
Let's dive in.
All right, we are going to continue our segments of listener questions. The first one is from a listener who sent an article and wanted your thoughts.
Interesting.
Okay. So it is from the Retirement Manifesto, and it is titled 3 Questions That Determine 99% of Your Retirement Success.
To be clear, I did not read this article.
No, of course. I am just going to...
Did you want me to?
No.
Okay.
I want to ask you the 3 questions.
Okay.
I'm going to have you weigh in on each question. And then we are going to discuss if those 3 questions indeed do determine 99% of your retirement success, or if it's just a clickbaity name. Are you
Can I
ready?
answer now?
I know.
I'm kidding.
But
Mostly
not
kidding.
really.
Not really kidding.
But I do think it's probably worth diving into what the questions
yeah,
are
let's do it.
and what value could be gleaned from them.
Could be fun.
So, question number 1 is, do you have a reliable cash flow plan? No one wants to spend their retirement worrying about money. To minimize the concern in retirement, it's important to do some math on the front end. While many questions about retirement are difficult to answer, getting a handle on your expenses and income isn't too difficult.
Yeah, I think it's fair to have I think it's absolutely true to say you should have a very firm grasp on your cash flow, right? That is unequivocally correct in my mind.
Agreed.
You have to know exactly how much you're spending every month, how that's going to change in retirement, right? Like a lot of times people think they're going to spend less in retirement. You'll hear estimates of 80% of what you spend now. You know, you'll spend 80% in retirement. You'll hear retirement spending smile, where what that means is they're saying you're going to spend more, right, when you first retire, and then less, right, as you get later into retirement. You're just not as mobile and you don't really want to do as much.
Yeah.
And then at the end, they're saying your healthcare costs are going to spike. Wow, spike. So it's like a smile, right? Like lot, little, lot. The idea is that you want to have some idea both of what your expenses are going to look like and where you're going to be drawing your funds from. So where's that cash flow coming from? I think that's fair. I think that's correct. I'm not sure that I would.
So just for some background, this is essentially a man who kind of went through his own retirement things and is now saying, like, based on what I've done, this is what I learned.
This is what I found most helpful.
So he says in their case, they tracked every dime that he and his wife spent for a year and then made adjustments to reflect how they expected their spending would change post-retirement.
That's
like
smart.
Downsizing, more travel, etc.
Yeah,
so
great.
they did get a grasp on the cash flow pre-retirement.
Sure.
To be able to start like forecasting.
Right. And it's important. Right. That's absolutely important. They had a good baseline and then they made pro forma, estimates based on that baseline. I think that's great.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Okay, perfect. So question number 1. So we're already at like 80%, right?
What?
Of like retirement success.
Right. Yeah.
I struggle with the fact that he's
I know.
that
We're
the
trying
title
to simplify
quantifies it
is.
for everybody.
It's clickbaity, right?
I struggle with it. Okay. Question number 2. Have you accounted for healthcare and unexpected costs? It's never good when you need to replace your HVAC system unexpectedly, and yet unexpected costs are a reality of life.
Right.
How do we address these in our plans for retirement success? And so he talks about considering unexpected costs like healthcare costs, taxes, car replacement and maintenance items, family assistance and charities, inflation, long-term care expenses.
So there's a lot to say about this.
Yeah.
One of the things I would say is that we can hedge a lot of our healthcare costs with like Medicare participation, right? So you can get Medicare, you can have, Part G, you can have a Medigap plan versus, Medicare Advantage plans. We've gone into that on prior episodes that you can go look up if you'd like. You're going to have a lot of the healthcare day-to-day covered. It's just going to be like long-term care type things that you're going to not have covered, right? So like nursing care, there are things that Medicare is just not going to cover. Hospital stays that exceed, 10 days without any hope of recovery. Like Medicare gets out of paying for everything, right? So if it's longer term, it doesn't look like there's an end in sight, or you need like round-the-clock care, Medicare is typically not going to cover that for very long. And so that's going to be out of pocket at some point, which is going to be painful on your pocketbook.
Yeah.
So that's important. I agree. I would say that one of the ways you can look at that, one of the ways you can think about it is I would say we include unexpected expenses in our annual budget. And what I mean by that is this, right? Like, so we hear this so frequently.
Yeah.
And it's easy to do on our own budget. When we look at our budget, I'm like, oh, our water heater broke. So you know what? We normally spend $5K.
That's not a normal monthly expense.
Right. So it's not a normal monthly expense. You can excuse it away.
Yeah.
right? And then you just kind of subtract it, and you're just like, well, no. Our real expenses, right?
Yeah.
Are
You
like
can like
5K.
it's the
Forget
mental
this 2K
accounting.
water
It's the
heater.
mental accounting of removing it from the bottom line and saying
Right.
we did great this month.
Yeah, forget the water heater, forget
Yeah.
the new car tires, the axle, whatever I
Yeah.
needed, like the
The vet
struts.
bills, the anything.
You
I
can
mean,
tell I don't know anything about cars because I said axle, which I'm pretty sure is one of the things if you break, it's like instantly your car is doomed.
it's what keeps the
Yeah,
tires.
I mean, I understand what it is,
Yeah.
but I just am pointing out that I'm a moron. I wanted to really
Don't
highlight
go
that
to
fact.
him for handy
I
tools.
wanted to highlight that fact.
Handy things. No.
Right.
Well, and we do a cash flow analysis for the clients that we work with, and we try to stress to them that you are going to have months that are artificially higher
Yeah.
or artificially lower based on
New
variables.
pets, old pets.
Right.
Right. End of life stuff for
But
pets
we
is
try
expensive.
to encourage them to look at the annual averages and the totals because we know
Right.
that there are going to be outlier months, but
You're
we'll
a little
see
bit
it
less
level
likely
out
to
a
have
bit.
outlier years.
Correct.
But ideally, you'd have, a little bit even more data. Like he said, he had a year of data before
Yeah.
they did it. Ideally, we would like to see, 2 to 3 at least.
Correct. And we'll always work with the data that we have available, but you should continue building that database. It shouldn't be I kept
Right.
track of it for a year, I'm good. Like I
Right.
spend this, I'm done.
So I guess my long-winded point is try not to back anything out on your year, right?
Yeah.
Like, so try not to say, oh, well, like you can one-time expense everything away if
Yeah.
you really want to, right?
For sure.
I mean, you can get down to a really bare bones budget if you just exclude everything that was a one-time expense. Like, I
Exactly.
only bought that pickleball racket once, a new snowboard once, and then on your third
That's true.
purchase, you're like, I don't know if that's real anymore. But the
That's
point
so
is,
true.
like, you still
I
have
only
to
had
count
to
that.
get the kids' school uniforms once this
Right.
year.
Right.
I mean, it's true. And like there are months, but depending upon like what your lifestyle looks like, that are going to be higher. Like when you have to pay the tuition for your kids,
Yeah,
right?
you need a new car.
Yes. Your insurance is not monthly for a lot of people. A lot of people pay 6 months or even a year. So in that month, it looks really bad because you're paying
Yeah.
a year's worth of insurance in a month.
One thing I did want to say, because I said car, and we're talking about things that I'm advocating expensing monthly. I would actually say that like capital expenditures, like a car, like a down payment on a house, a vacation home, those things should probably be in a separate category for like goals, right? Like I actually would say
Yes.
that you would back a car out of your monthly expenses.
But the car
But you
repairs.
still, correct, car repairs stay.
Yeah.
And insurance and upkeep
Yeah.
costs stay. But I would say that if you're driving, a 2012 Honda Civic, and it's going to have to be replaced,
He may or may not be
I
talking
may
about
or may
us.
not have a 24. We may or may not have a 2012 Honda Civic parked in the
May or may
driveway
not be
that has.
talking about us.
Yeah. Anyway, it's looking worse for the wear. If you know
She's
that's
seen
the case,
things.
going into retirement, then you should probably set aside, $30,000, $40,000. Earmark that as a purchase
That
for
thing's
the
not
price of the car.
lasting forever.
Right.
And especially living down here, every hurricane season we kind of
Yeah.
we've replaced the roof.
Yeah,
We've replaced many
At
things.
some point, it's irrational not to plan to pay your hurricane down payment on your house. You know what I mean? Like your
Yeah.
hurricane deductible, I should say.
Correct. Like just having that budgeted in and like being conservative in those estimates is great because the upside is that you have
More money
funds.
to go spend in
Yeah,
Italy or
you had funds
Japan.
that you earmarked for something that you don't need. And the downside is minimal.
Correct.
Whereas being on the other side is great.
Correct. But yes, absolutely account for these variables. Honestly, planning software helps with a ton of this.
Yeah.
We talked about Medicare costs. That's medical
Although,
costs. That's in there usually.
If you're
Inflation's in
DIYing
there.
it or you're doing it yourself, a spreadsheet is great too.
Sure.
Like there are many ways to do it, but it's just taking the step to do it.
Yeah, it's hard to conceptualize
Yeah.
all of these things when you're just trying to think off the top of your head, like, oh, what do I need to consider? Like,
There are
inflation.
tons of templates online as well
Right.
for budgeting and cash flow things. And
There's also free software, I believe, online that you can use. I
Yeah.
forgot what it's called, but I think Retirement Plan Today or Retirement Planning, something like that. There's like a calculator where you can it's like a bare bones like planning software type, I believe.
yes.
But anyway, yeah,
I
you should
think
absolutely
he
think this through. You should have, I would argue, that you should also have like a tax plan, right? Especially if all your money's in tax deferred and you have multiple years between retirement and
Yeah.
either claiming a pension, Social Security, distributions from your or RMDs.
And so the very last question that is here is one of my favorites in my area of happiness is how will you spend your time and stay fulfilled?
Right.
A common mistake many folks make when planning
got
for
the answer already.
retirement is to focus primarily on the financial issues. And while that is very important, and we see a lot of people not focusing on them that need to, money is only a tool. And most folks find achieving their financial goal doesn't in and of itself lead to happiness in life. Did you know retirement increases the probability of depression by 40%?
Yeah, that's true. Right? I've heard
We've seen the
there's a bunch of data points to go on here that
Yeah.
are very super interesting. Like, I find this fascinating. One of the things to talk about when we're talking about spending, I just want to go back to that real quick. We talked about the spending smile. One of the things that happens is
Mhm.
when you find yourself not at work all day,
Yeah.
you have to do something to occupy your time. And some people enter hobbies that might be a little bit more expensive. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe you're a golfer and you golf every day now, but now that means, hey, I
You're
want to
paying
buy.
greens fees,
Yeah, I
you're
want to
paying
do.
for
Right.
balls.
I wouldn't know any of these things because I don't golf. But like
You
you know,
wanna get the
you
cart.
might want things. Like if I'm playing
Yeah.
pickleball, I might want new tennis shoes, right? And pickleball, I would imagine, is probably one of the cheaper things you can do.
It is here
But you still
anyway.
want a
Well,
racket, balls, tennis shoes.
depending upon where you are, you have to rent the courts. Or if you're going
That's
to
true.
pickle and pins, that's gonna add up real
Yeah,
fast.
that's true,
We
right?
found that out the hard way.
Yeah, you might want membership to courts.
Yeah, so there's definitely, like, figuring out
Or you
how
might
you
just
want
go
to
to
spend
lunch
your
with your
time.
friends that you've been
That's what
playing
I was
with.
gonna say. It could be eating, it could be going to the movies, but whatever hobby you're taking on, there's some type of marginal cost to it. Even if your hobby is knitting or puzzle, I
Right.
love puzzles.
But I think to this
You're still having
question's
to buy said puzzles.
yeah, and
Right.
to this question's point, you may want to plan for spending that money so that you can increase your fulfillment.
Yes.
Like the sense of belonging is often found,
That's what's
particularly for males,
Yeah.
with their coworkers,
Yeah.
right? Their sense of purpose, their sense of self, and their friends are typically their coworkers, whereas females will often have more relationships outside of work, which leads to a very interesting dynamic where when couples retire,
Yeah.
the females are pretty content not spending all that much time with their husband because they've already got their networks in the communities and they've built their friends base out that's not just their colleagues, whereas the husbands were just the colleagues, right? So now they've got nothing and they're like, hey, Rach, let's go spend some time. Rachel's like, I'm going to lunch with the
I
ladies.
already have planned.
Yeah, I got lunch with the
Yeah.
gals. I'm out. And so so I'm sitting here very depressed
Twiddling your thumbs.
because I'm not as good at snowboarding anymore, and it's maybe it's summertime. What could be worse? You know what I
can
mean?
always go watch the grandkids.
There's video games. There's still video games. You know what I
They'll
mean?
be fine. But it's true, and I like that one of the 3 questions here focuses on retirement as a whole and not just the financial aspect of it.
Absolutely.
But the financial aspect has to be under control to enable you
100%.
to be able to decide, how do I want to spend the time? What's my purpose going to be? What kind of relationships am I going to have? Like, what
Yeah.
activities am I going to do?
Yeah, we would encourage people to think through exactly what they want their days to look
Yeah.
like, right? And I know that sounds silly. They're like, well, I'll just wake up and do whatever I want. Okay, what does that mean? And like the first day, like some people are like, I'll wake up and do absolutely nothing, and that might be fine for the first day, first
Yeah.
week, the first month. Depends on who you are.
Well,
I would probably. It wouldn't take me very long to get really bored and want to
if
go
you
dive
don't
into
have a
something.
thing to wake up to,
Right.
then oftentimes there are lots of studies done that report that there are people who just will stay in bed longer,
Yeah.
right? They'll sleep the day away. And then it becomes really hard to feel like you enjoyed yourself or you're happy or you have any kind of personal fulfillment if you haven't done anything during the day.
Right. Conventional wisdom in the retirement planning community is that you should want to retire to something instead of retiring from something, right?
Mhm.
So you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to retire from my job.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop working.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to stop I'm essentially terminating my relationship with the company, right? I'm
Yeah.
stopping employment. I'm retiring
We
from
hear all about how
being
people
a financial
can't
advisor.
wait to leave
Right.
what they're doing now.
Right. Until they, like,
do
the
what?
grass is always greener, right? And you think, hey, this is amazing. I have control
Yeah.
over my time. I have absolute autonomy, but I may or may not have a purpose. I may or may not be driven and motivated to do things anymore, right? Like,
Exactly.
there's a lot of, you're running the rat race kind of a thing. You're trying to accumulate wealth. Now I've accumulated it, and I'm kind of, there's a lot of, what am I going to do with it that's going to bring me happiness?
Yeah. So, Eric, 3 good questions. I think we find all 3 of them very
they're
insightful,
absolutely.
solid. Do they determine 99% of your retirement success?
I mean, it's a lot. I think that's a large component. It depends on how granular we want to be. Like, I think
it was
distribution
helpful that
strategies.
the questions were very broad.
Yeah, they're very general.
Very broad. So they're trying to address multiple areas in retirement,
Right.
which is great. We didn't really get a touch on
Estate planning at all?
exactly. Estate planning, I think, was a very big gap, as well as withdrawal strategies, right? We
Correct.
talked about cash flow,
Correct.
but we didn't really
That could mean
talk
a number
about
of things. And yes, there's a lot to talk about with cash flow and retirement. You'll
Yeah.
hear bucket strategies. You'll hear treasure chest strategies.
Yeah.
Like
there's
where you
some-
keep, just to be clear, like the bucket strategy is I withdraw only from this bucket and then only from this bucket. And then, the treasure chest is I'm going to keep like a treasure trove of cash so that if I think that the average recession it lasts 3 years, I'm
I
going to keep
can
3 years
weather
worth of my
through it,
cash.
yeah.
And then I'm only going to withdraw from the cash there. It's essentially a modified bucket strategy where you're only withdrawing from cash in certain time. Like you set up framework around when you're going to pull from which bucket, right? And then you just adhere to this predetermined framework and try to stick with it.
Yeah.
Because it's just really easy, as it is with any investments, to be like, oh, this one looks good right now. Like I'm going to go with this.
Yeah.
And so you tend to always be kind of chasing the winners, and that with mean reversion doesn't always work out. So the point is, there's a number of ways to do it. Rebalancing is another strategy, right? Where you don't have buckets, you don't have predetermined withdrawals. You're literally just rebalancing and withdrawing from the thing that has elevated returns most recently, right? So that's another strategy. Yeah, there's a lot to think about with how are we going to create our income stream? How are we going to fund it? Do we have extra money in our taxable account after funding it, right? Like you can pull the money from a variety of different types of assets,
Correct.
so securities. So I can pull it from stocks, I can pull it from bonds, I can pull it from like actual income sources like a pension or Social Security or an annuity, right? So I can do that, and then I have to think of which accounts I'm pulling from. Okay, so
Exactly.
in terms of taxable, tax deferred, tax free. And then even beyond that, there's various types of each of those accounts, which one's advantageous and why, which spouses are we going to deplete first and why are we doing that? Yeah, there's just a ton, right? So if we're thinking about depleting a Roth IRA, we would always choose the older spouse or the one that we determined would have the earlier end of plan, which just is a nicer way to say that they pass first, right? So the person that's going to pass first, we would deplete theirs Roth first, so that, well, I guess if they're married, it shouldn't really matter because the wife can just convert it into her name. But the idea is if something happened and I don't know, they divorced, right?
Yep.
Then the spouse would no longer be able to have that advantage, and the accounts to the survivors that are not the spouse or within 10 years would have 10 years to dump the account, right? So I said 10 years twice there. It wasn't a misspeak. It's actually that it's your surviving spouse, or I believe it's a relative that's within 10 years of your age, or a beneficiary that's within 10 years of your age. So it's usually like a brother, sister, right? So it's a relative within 10 years of age. Those would have special qualifying status, and then they would not have to distribute the Roth within 10 years. But if you don't have that status, then you do, right? So you would take the person that's more likely to meet their demise sooner, and they probably not the best way to phrase that. But you would want their account to be emptied first. No, not at all. Sorry, team.
Well, and so we did an episode a while back about we had answered a question about somebody who reached out asking how to have hard conversations about estate planning with their parent, because they were like, how do I have a conversation with them without sounding too morbid or money grubbing, but I genuinely just want to make sure that they're okay. And we talked about how just big picture, it's a tough thing to talk about is end of life planning. That last phase is difficult. And then you're having to face the reality of like, which spouse, you're literally having to bet on which spouse you think is going to live longer. And then you're coming to terms with, your own mortality or what life looks like without the other person. There's a lot that goes into it. It's emotionally draining. It's one of the reasons that we advocate having a very trusted professional help you during those times, because if it's not planned out ahead of time, trying to navigate that stuff in the midst of emotional grief and a new reality is just cruel. It feels cruel.
Also, bring a trusted person on your end to the meetings.
Yes, exactly.
We would strongly advocate that.
Yes.
Right. So bring, son, daughter, somebody that you trust to have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
So that you can be sure that,
someone who will be willing to ask questions that you don't think of, or the questions that you may not feel comfortable asking. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing that we would ask, or we would recommend doing if you're going to a doctor, right? If you're going to an important doctor's visit, bringing somebody along is really helpful. Like, speaking from personal experience, like, I find myself to be relatively deferent to doctors. I'm such a people pleaser. I'm like, thank you, that's amazing, that's wonderful. And then he'll ask like 20 questions to all of it. And it's helpful. because they're things I would never think to ask, but things that are really important to know. And you need that when you're talking about financial planning, when you're talking about estate planning, when you're talking about anything having to do with your life.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Well, the same author did write multiple other articles that this poster asked opinions about, which we can touch on some later episodes. But it's interesting. I think that those 3 very broad categories are a really good starting place.
I'll say they covered a lot more than I thought they would.
Yeah, it was broad. You got really worried with the title, didn't you?
Yeah.
The title
generally
was
a fan of
not
those things.
promising, but the questions themselves are important things to be thinking about. By no means are they
Comprehensive.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, then we will continue with this question and answer series next time.
All righty.